Today I'm going to be going over Seed's kit real quick. I am reading this through a Reddit TLDR, so forgive me if I do get anything wrong. By the way, since these are leaks, things are subject to change, so just keep that in mind when you watch the video. Seed is an electric attacker that will get a buff depending on how strong her attacker agent on the team is. Seed's attack and crit damage will increase based off of the other attack agent's attack and crit damage. That attacker agent that Seed is getting attack and crit damage from will be called a partner. That partner will basically buff Seed. Now, in order to get the max buff, the partner agent needs to have 3000 attack and 200% crit damage to get the max buff for Seed, which can be pretty difficult to achieve since building characters in this game can be very difficult thanks to the RNG mechanics. So if you have another attacker on the team with Seed, whether it's Orpheus or Sanby, make sure they have at least 3000 attack and 200% crit damage in order to get the max buff for Seed. Another part of Seed's core kit is that she will start with 120 points of overheat. The amount of overheat that Seed has basically means that she'll be able to summon her mech during her basic attack. Seed will also gain overheat whenever her partner is consuming energy. And Seed starts off with 120 overheat. The max that she can reach is 150. So she's going to be relying on her partner to get the 150 overheat in order for Seed to use her mecha punches that come from her mech, which is pretty similar to that Bangboo mech event that we did. It's pretty similar to that. That event was basically the testing ground for Seed's kit. Another part of Seed's core kit is that it will increase the damage of her overload punch by 15%. I assume the overload punch is coming from her mech. The translation either calls it mecha punch or overload punch, I guess. I want to say they're both the same. They might be different. I'm not really 100% sure, but Seed's mech does come at a play every now and then. Another interesting part of Seed's core skill is that it will restore 2.5 energy to the partner every 1 second, and will also increase partner's X special damage by 30%. So Seed's partner, which will be another attacker agent, will have their X skill increase, which is pretty nice. So not only is Seed getting a buff from her partner, but even her attacking partner is getting a buff with their X skill. Seed's kit kind of gives the vibe of, you scratch her back, she scratch your back kind of deal. Seed's basic attacks will change depending on how much overheat she accumulates during the battle. Seed has at least 120 plus overheat. She can unleash a mecha punch at her 4th basic attack. Seed can also consume 80 overheat to perform a mecha combo after the 4th basic attack. Also, when Seed is off field, she will be doing a mecha assault aftershock attacks every 5 seconds. I assume this also consumes overheat as well. So before Seed gets off field, I'm going to say that you probably need her at a decent amount of overheat in order for her to perform mecha assaults when she gets off field, although I am not really 100% sure since this is basically just a TLDR post. When you hold Seed's X special, she enters her mech and enters this flight mode, which I believe you basically fire a barrage of missiles towards the enemy, and after the mode ends, the mech will launch a punch at the enemy. I want to say this might be the overload punch. I am not 100% sure. As for Seed's W engine, it has the basic attack at 713 and crit rate of 24%. So it does help her build the crit damage ratio. Passive will increase her crit damage by 35%. And whenever the wearer does a basic attack or an X special, they basically get an increase of electrical damage. You get 1 stack with a max of 2 stacks, I believe. The translation says 2 layers, which doesn't make sense. I think 1 stack can only last up to 30 seconds. Also, once you receive 2 stacks, it will ignore the enemy's defense by 20 or 32%. This is a pretty busted W engine since it could ignore the enemy's defense, and ignoring the enemy's defense is a pretty good thing it means more damage. So TLDR on Seed is that she's an electric attacker that gets an attack and crit damage buff that scales off of the second attacker on the team. And Seed also buffs their X special as well. I think Seed will be a pretty interesting electric attacker since she's basically not only buffing her partner, but the partner is also buffing her. So I think she can work well with a good majority of other attacker characters as well. Her best teams are most likely going to be either Orpheus and Trigger, or instead of Orpheus, you replace Super Soldier Anby. If you want to use Seed outside of the Obel squad, you technically can, since basically all she needs is another attacker on the team. You can put in Harumasa instead. I don't think Seed will exactly like overshadow Super Soldier Anby or Harumasa, since Seed basically relies on another attacking partner in order for her to deal damage. And since Harumasa and Super Soldier Anby are also both attackers, they can technically work with Seed. Seed also has the potential to be a pretty interesting investment since she relies on attackers for her kit. So that means other future attackers could be dependent on Seed, or maybe Seed can also help them out as well. Seed can also work pretty well with 4-star attackers like Billy, Corrin, that drill guy, I forgot his name. I really want to pull her for Corrin. I think she's going to work really well with Corrin, since not only does Seed buff your character's X special, she also restores their energy as well, something that Corrin could use. So a pretty interesting character. She is an attacker character, so I do think she's kind of an easy skip. Maybe real quick, I'll talk about this Seed. I don't even want to call it a controversy, but you know, people are kind of upset about Seed. I think people were expecting, you know, Seed to be like this big fucking mech that's just, you know, wrecking the field and shit. But instead of a big mech, we basically got, you know, a waifu instead. You know, at the end of the day, these are gacha games, and, you know, majority of the spenders are straight males, so it does make sense that Seed would be a waifu. ZZZ came out in like 2014, 2015. Yeah, I can probably see them making Seed, you know, just a big mech, but times are just kind of different now. Not to mention, you know, gacha games that came out during that time there weren't really that many 3D gacha games. I feel like FGO or Reverse 1999 could get away with more variations, partially because those games are PNG based, so those games probably don't take that much to make, while Zenless Zone Zero is a 3D game, so it probably does take more money and resources to make the game, and thus they put out more female characters to make that dough. So it doesn't really take rocket science why these, you know, not just ZZZ, but any of these other gacha games come out with more female characters, because they just want the money. They're just, you know, chasing the money. Anyways, Seed is cool. I'm pulling for her. She's really cute and also hot. Let me know what you guys think, and I will see you guys later.
Bye bye now. Come again soon.